Let's talk. Let's talk.
Giles Brown.
Let's talk.
Right then, brace yourselves because it's the moment that we have all been waiting for. Yeah, because it's the time when we go to the man who's been described as my even more manic twin. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, those in the Crusader states, it's Jem Duducu. Damn good, happy new, merry new. What year are we in, Jem?
Hello, welcome everybody. Yes, I'm back. So you said sort of like Happy New Year.
Yes.
But my big question is it? And is it even 2026? Because this is something I get asked quite a lot. It's like, well, how did people measure time in the past? And it's like, guys, we got problems with the current system. And it's really interesting. It shows you how civilizations just sort of pile on things and don't really think about the logic or mathematical order of this stuff. So let's talk about the fact that it definitely isn't 2026
Burn him. Burn him. It's heresy, I tell thee. Why isn't it 2026? What's
going to get weirder.
Okay.
It's definitely going to get weirder. Yeah, okay, fine. So obviously it's we measure it from the birth of Jesus. This is 2026 AD, year of our Lord. So let's look at that. So first of all, if you remember the nativity, the story of the birth of Jesus, Herod hears about his birth and basically decides to carry out what's referred to as the massacre of the innocents, the killing of firstborn males. There's a problem with that. We know that Herod died in 4 BC. So, if we're going to use that as the date, then we're off by 4 years. But also, you would think that, BC AD is like with mathematics and graphs, you go from the negative numbers into the positive numbers. So your graph would go -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. So you would expect the dating order to go, 2 BC, 1 BC, 0 AD, 1 AD, 2 AD, except the Romans didn't have the number 0. And for reasons we do not have time to go into, the church didn't like the number 0 either. So Jesus is born in 1 AD. It goes from 1 BC to 1 AD, which is mathematically wrong. You need an extra year in there. So that means we're off by 1 year. Sorry, we have to do 2025 again. Or if you also remember the story of the Nativity, Joseph and Mary had to go to Bethlehem because of this Roman census. Now, there was a Roman census round about this time. It's called the Census of Quirinius, and it was in 7 AD. So, which one are you going for? If you are doing... he's around at the time of King Herod, then this is 2030. If we're just doing the mathematical one, then this is 2025. And if we're doing the Quirinius one, hello everybody, it's still 2019.
I mean, presumably Herod's had a really slow email, so therefore he didn't start slaughtering people until a couple of years later. He didn't slaughter anybody, Harry. It's actually quote unquote fake biblical news, isn't it? I mean, there is no slaughter of innocents.
Well, look, I'm not going to go into this area to try and offend anybody's religion. But when people turn around and say the Bible is a historical text, it doesn't have any dates in it. So it's not very useful in that way. It's not. You're reading it the wrong way. It's trying to be about religious truth, not about, calendar dates and things like that. It's a bit like saying, I'm going to fix my car because I really loved and watched Breaking Bad. It's like, yeah, Breaking Bad's great, but you're not using it for car maintenance. So you're trying to use it in the wrong way.
So here's the thing. So what are the Romans using then? Sun up, sun down. I mean, what's the come on, talk me through it.
So this is the great thing. So it was like, okay, fine. Well, Julius Caesar didn't walk around going, well, it's 50 BC, guys, because they didn't know.
Exactly, yeah.
So what I love is the fact that, we'll come to the Julian calendar in a moment, but in the era of the emperors, you measured it in terms of how many years had this emperor been around. So it kept resetting. You would turn around and say, this is the 4th year of Hadrian. And then when Hadrian dies, you then move on to somebody else.
But it doesn't, when Nero comes and then it all goes completely what's it up? Because we get 4 emperors, 5 emperors in a year?
Yeah, there was the year of the 4 emperors and the years of the 5 emperors. So that was just a year that a lot happened, basically. And so what's interesting is that attitude with the Romans. So like I was saying, here we are in the 5th year of Tiberius. It therefore means that anything prior to that, you might mention someone like Caesar Augustus, and he's just a long time ago. And we do that as people today. I have fun with this with, sometimes I deal with kids and stuff like that. And I remember as a child, you remember the Vikings, they were angry guys with axes, or the Mongols, they were angry guys with composite bows. So, and it's like, oh yeah, so they lived at the same time. No, they're actually separated by about 400 years, but that's not, or at least the beginning of those two eras are separated by 400 years, but that's not something you just remember. It's a long time ago. It's at the time when people didn't have TV, for example. And we talk about the olden days or days of yore. And really, every civilization has done that in the past.
Can I just throw a complete curveball? Because you've mentioned Romans, but let's go further back. Egyptians. And we all think, Cleopatra, Caesar, the whole bit. And then somebody threw the curveball that actually, because of the length of the Egyptian pharaoh empires, we're closer to Cleopatra than Cleopatra was to, literally the first
the building of the pyramids.
Yeah. I mean, boom, mind gone.
Yeah, because Cleopatra was, and she was Cleopatra the Seventh, by the way. Okay. She was at the very, very end of this story that goes back thousands of years. The Romans and the ancient Greeks we tend to think of as old. They were very new on the scene compared to the truly old civilizations like the Egyptians or the Babylonians, etc.
Can we have the Beaker? Can we mention the Beaker people? The Beaker people, just because I like the Muppets.
The Beaker people. Yes, we're talking about the Stone Age, the Neolithic in Western Europe. Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
Let's get back, yeah.
Julius Caesar did not invent the calendar, but during his era of supremacy, they rejigged the Roman calendar, and then we get the Julian calendar, which is 365 days a year and a quarter. So every 4 years you get a leap year. Brilliant. Works. Kind of, but also it meant that both between Julius Caesar and also his adopted son, Octavius, who becomes Caesar Augustus, they're so important that they change the entire calendar. It's January now, but it was just December. December in Latin is the 10th month, which is a stupid name for the 12th month. So what's happened is there used to be 10 months, but they added 2 for these 2 incredible men. July is named after Julius Caesar and August is named after Caesar Augustus. So we've got these sort of, fossilized events of history that have been preserved for 2,000 years in a political structure that doesn't even exist anymore. We're giving respect to Julius Caesar and Caesar Augustus 2,000 years after they died, which is mind-blowing. And it gets even weirder when you do the days of the week.
Okay.
So let's talk about Saturday, Saturn's Day. That's a Roman god. Sunday, Roman god. Moon Day, Monday, Roman god. And then we go from Roman gods to either Anglo-Saxon or Viking pagan gods. Tua, goddess. Today's Woden's Day, or that would be the Anglo-Saxon way of pronouncing it, Odin's Day, if you're going to be talking about it from a Scandinavian perspective. Yeah, the king of the Viking pantheon of gods. Tomorrow's going to be his son's day, Thor's day, and then one of his wives, Freya, goddess, on Friday. So weirdly, Christianity tended to try and sort of sweep away old pagan names, but these were so ingrained that we've got the names of pagan gods that we're saying literally every day, which blows my mind.
I'm just trying to think how the pagans get in there. I mean, obviously because here's a great misnomer: the Dark Ages. I mean, we were taught at school, weren't we, that everybody's like shivering in mud huts, waiting for the Normans to turn up, and yet it's an incredible. Well, it is, isn't it? That's what we were taught at school. We're the same age. It was like, we're going to stop with the Roman Empire. Bad thing, fools. Really? That's Rome sacked and that's the end of the Roman Empire. Spoiler alert, no, it isn't. The Vikings only go west and trouble a few sort of like good Christians at Lindisfarne. No, they didn't. And basically everybody shivers around doing nothing until, thank goodness, Rollo rocks up, or the son of Rollo turns up. No, it's not. You give them your last Norman conqueror. But you know what I'm saying here? And so therefore, this wonderful period history, this is my new thing, by the way. And we get the Byzantines, my other new thing, by the way. So how do the Norse gods get sort of shoveled into our week?
Well, the thing is, it's about sort of what's normal in civilization. Again, sure. Not going to go too much into this, but there is a lot of evidence to say there are a lot of pagan festivals around the winter solstice. We don't know what part of the year Jesus was born. Why have we picked December 25th? It's kind of plucked out of nowhere, except it is next to a whole bunch of pagan festivals. So we don't know this for a fact, but it was likely that these were such ingrained local festivals that they couldn't eradicate them. So let's just rebrand them. No, it isn't about the pagan festival of Yule. It's actually about the birth of Jesus, the Savior and Messiah. So that's what we're now going to celebrate. And it is weird how much in Britain, you get the Yule log, which is absolutely a pagan festival, pagan feature. Same thing with mistletoe. It's a fertility symbol, pagan. But these are mixed into the Christian, the birth of Jesus, the nativity, etc., etc. So the best theory is that some of this stuff just sticks, and nobody, in the best will in the world, nobody's going to be able to change it. It's a little bit like there is a word in Britain that predates any other language, and we use it pretty regularly. It's called Thames, as in the River Thames. It's not Roman, it's not Anglo-Saxon. Thames is a prehistoric word. We just always called that stretch of water the Thames.
You learn something new every day. Now, meanwhile, it's Orthodox New Year. What's happening with, are we going there? Yes, we're going there. Off we go.
Oh, okay. So let's go back to that Julian calendar. 365 days a year and a quarter. This works fine for centuries, except planet Earth does not go round at exactly 365 and a quarter. It works fine for centuries, but after 1,500 years, it's off. It's off by quite a lot. And this is where it becomes quite counterintuitive. Of all the people that you would think, they need to fix this, they need to be scientific, perhaps the last person on your list in 1582 would be the Pope.
Yay!
And yet that's what happened. Pope Gregory XIII went, we are clearly, it's April and March are a mess here. It's not working anymore. We need to recalibrate. And so in 1582, literally 10 days were taken out of the calendar. But because it was done by the papacy, it became a political or religious element. So countries, very Catholic countries like France and Spain, immediately switched correctly to the Gregorian elements. But places like Protestant England, at the height of Queen Elizabeth I, the heretic queen, according to the Catholics, she wasn't going to know, she wasn't going to tell them, she wasn't going to be told when in September it was by the papacy. Heavens no. And so it took decades for England to pick it up, and you can still see it even in the 20th century. Orthodox Christianity was not going to learn anything from the papacy. And so, quite famously, there is the October Revolution in Russia. But when you look in the dates, none of the stuff in October happened in October, but that's because they were following the old Greek Orthodox calendar, the Julian calendar, and actually it was all happening in November. The rest of the world knew it was November except Russia, but also the last country in Europe to switch to the Gregorian calendar was Greece, obviously Greek Orthodox, in 1923. But even then it was only for political and economic reasons. The church calendar remained, in essence, wrong.
Right. So what's happening with the Ottomans then? Come on, it's your specialist subject.
Okay. So now we've mentioned that this is we the West does it from the birth of Jesus. Now, clearly the Jews do not believe that Jesus is the Messiah. So what do?
He's just a very naughty boy, etc. Yes.
That is not the official Judaism viewpoint, but anyway, yes. But they also use the Bible as a point of reference as the traditional creation of the world. So right now, the Hebrew calendar, this is the year 5,786. And again, when people turn around and go, oh, that's a ridiculously high number, well, so's 2026. Nobody listening to this knows what 2 centuries is like, what it feels like, let alone 2,000 years. These are unknowable numbers from the human experience. So yeah, let's have 5,786. But then when it comes to Islam, they're not going to pick either of those things. They actually So the Prophet Muhammad, he was born centuries after Jesus, and they actually measure it from the point when the Prophet Muhammad leaves Mecca to go to Medina and found the first Muslim community. So right now, in countries like Saudi Arabia, this is the year 1447, and will be until June time, when that's when their annual sort of like the year clicks over. So is this 1447, 2026, 5786? I don't know, but I can tell you what it is in North Korea, because here's another crazy one.
Come on, then.
So clearly, North Korea, very nationalist, very communist. They're not going to follow any religions, and they're not going to follow anything that isn't Korean, because obviously North Korea is best. So right now, in Korea, it is North Korea, it is the year 113, because they measure it.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
So I'm rambling on it.
No, it's all right.
They measure it from the birth of Kim Jong-un's grandfather, the founder of the modern North Korean communist state. And that's seen as cosmically important as the birth of Jesus. And what's interesting with them is they don't have an AD BC. It's either within the 113, which also coincides with basically communism, so it fits very nicely all the philosophy and political ideology of North Korea. But anything prior to that is just basically olden times. There aren't any dates associated with it.
The North Korean date.
Everything was rubbish until the Kim dynasty was born, okay? And obviously the grandfather was born under a double rainbow, because of course he was.
Of course he was. Tripped over 3 leprechauns on the way there. But the thing is, God, teaching history in North Korea must be a doddle if you're a professor of history. You've only got to do it.
When did that happen? Long time ago.
Yeah.
When did that happen? Long time ago.
Okay, and you don't get a third choice because somebody comes and grabs you and you're never seen again, basically. Yeah. I'm really interested about the whole thing about it being 1480, whatever it is, because
1447.
Great, that means I can get my sword and buckler and my ruff back out of storage and go and visit.
If you so require, that's fine. But it does show you how sort of totally arbitrary all these datings are. We're used to it. It shows you about like familiarity and repetition. Of course it's 2026. And let's face it, most of the world exists. And when you talk to people, look, I'm not a conspiracy theory nut. If you actually talk to people who are experts in calendars, they'll say, yeah, everybody knows it's off by at least 1 year because of the zero thing. But everybody agrees it's 2026 too. The cost of changing every textbook, of changing every, it wasn't, America wasn't created in 1776. It turns out it was 1775. It's just not worth it. We already agreed what the dates are. Let's just stick with the dates. It's fine.
And also, it's very interesting because you can really tie yourself up in knots if you're trying to and I'm sorry for all people who are really into the Bible. You can tie yourself into knots trying to get everything to fit with the timeline because the Bible's being, we take it from the 4 main disciples who got it, but there are several others who write, but they never make the final cut kind of thing. But you can get, like you said, Herod dies 4 BC, censuses at various times. It's like trying to do, trying to tie in archaeology to biblical stuff. So you may find the Temple of Solomon or whatever. If you're looking for that region, go, oh look, there's a brick. It obviously came from this temple, or it's the hanging vase of Sheba or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is the thing. I've heard there are people have entire degrees in like biblical archaeology and biblical scholarship. But the reality is, if you are looking at it from a purely scientific view, there are some things that stack up to the Bible, and there are some things that counter what is written in the Bible, because it is a text written by human beings. It has biases in it. And there is no such thing as an unbiased thing. Also, we are talking about when you get the Bible out, including Old Testament and New Testament, you're talking about a collection of writings over about 1,000 years, over multiple countries, multiple cultures, written in different languages for different reasons. And so, unsurprisingly, it contradicts itself. It's like, for example, they say, well, you got all of Egyptian history in there. No, you don't. Every time they mention the Egyptians, they just use the word Pharaoh. Only once do do they use the name of a pharaoh. In the dozens of times they mention a pharaoh, and that one is Shashonk, who you've never heard of. Everybody assumes it's Ramesses who's chasing them across the Red Sea. There is no evidence of that whatsoever. And indeed, funnily enough, in the 19th century, when they started translating the hieroglyphs, the Vatican got rather sweaty because they realized, oh my goodness, we're going to hear all of this from the other point of view. And it turns out sometimes it backed up the Bible and sometimes it totally contradicts it. What's really interesting, this I wasn't planning on saying this, but I'm just going there.
Go
in the entirety of translated hieroglyphs, how many times do you think the name Moses, who's obviously incredibly important, took the Jews out of Egypt, how many times in all of the translated hieroglyphs has the name Moses come up?
3.
0.
Okay.
So in other words, it looks like Moses was created in the same way King Arthur was created, and I just offended billions of people with that line. But them's the facts. I understand the importance of the story, and if you want to believe the story, please believe the story. But if you're looking for archaeology to back you up, it isn't there, and that's okay. That, this half hour of radio shouldn't in any way damage your beliefs because your beliefs are stronger than this guy who came on to talk about calendars.
Yeah, but at the same time, but those who are now saddling up their horses near Glastonbury, he is buried in the Abbey. Honestly, Governor, let's not even go there. Couple of comments from the public. This one. Whoa! How do you guys sound so similar? Had that one before. Meanwhile, morning, Dawn. You two, so synergistic every time. Do you agree on the same breakfast before a show, i.e. a Red Bull and caffeine cocktail? And this one from Gary, who says, when the clock, this is the best show ever, gotta have this guy in every week. Perish the thought. Gotta have this guy in every week. When the clocks went back, I put mine to 1979, and somebody said, Giles, when you get your Bible out, everybody else in the room runs. So, what can, yeah, exactly. What can we ascertain then, if we're trying to set our clocks, Jem?
Right, okay, so I'm glad you asked that question because I have spoken to some scientists about this. And what I've been saying is 2026 bias towards either deliberate or subconscious bias towards Christianity, 1447 deliberate bias towards Islam, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, though, the 365-day thing, that's biased to planet Earth. Not all the planets, none of the other planets going round the sun have 365 days in their year. Jupiter, it's several years. Mercury, it's less than a year, depending on how far it takes them to go around this star, which is just one of it's one of billions of stars in the Milky Way, which is a completely average galaxy in the entire universe. So what number can we use that the aliens from Galaxy Zongazog would actually know? And the answer is 13.7.
Okay.
Billion years, because 13.7 is billion years ago. That's when the Big Bang happened. So if you talk about 13 points, we are in the year 13.7 billion, and one, and that's the best we can do in terms of a truly universal, non-controversial, non-offensive, totally neutral to all cultures and religions number I can give you.
I've just had an email, a WhatsApp in from the Supreme Leader of the planet Zog, who says, how dare you? I should be reading your Vogon poetry before the week is out, and if you haven't reset your atomic clock to 13 point whatever billion and one, then we'll be coming to put an interstellar bypass with you about next. Why did they never learn? Why did they never have a day off? I think we should reinstate Loki Day, the way that the year's gone thus far, because people are saying we've done our 14-day free trial of 2026, and we'd like to give it back, please.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But then in terms of actual times and minutes, you just mentioned the atomic clock. There's obviously been the quest to try and get as precise timings as possible. And what's interesting is on that is that's become political. It was in the 19th century with the British Empire where we worked out that it's actually sun rises at different times on planet Earth. So let's create all these time zones. It's actually a Canadian, but he was doing it for the British Empire, who came up with the time zones around the world. Right now I'm talking to you and it's, 10:45, but you're in a different continent or different part of the continent, so it's 11:45.
I'm in a different headspace than my other.
Different planet, yeah. So, but what it means is there are some countries that are so offended by the idea of GMT and the time zones that literally India, because each time zone is an hour, but India is not 4 hours ahead of Britain or 5 hours ahead of Britain. It's 4.5, okay? Because it can't be being told what time it is by Britain, for heaven's sakes. We're not part of the colonies anymore. I mean, and also China. China is huge, and it really should have 2 or 3 time zones to it, but it doesn't, because they just decided everybody in China must have the same time. So we have literally political decisions telling you when to eat dinner.
What time is it in North Korea is the next question. Who knows? It's Kim Jong
it's the year 113, about the same time as Hadrian, which seems about right, technologically speaking. Right, but the weird thing is, of course, you go over the border and it's 2026. It's insane.
Right then, so no such thing as Big Bang. Right, thank you very much. Meanwhile, you're funny. I think you two should have a podcast of your very own. Don't even tempt him. But yeah, your guest sounds like Summer Marks, LBC's US correspondent. Shh, don't get out of the bag. And hilarious. He's your twin. How fun. So, Jem,
yes.
we've got 3 minutes of Earth time left to talk about.
Or do we?
Or
yes,
do we? See, there's a whole bunch of people now looking at their watches going, what on earth are these guys on? What are your projects then? What have you got coming up for this year, whatever bleeding year it is?
So, right, okay. Well, I'm going to just sort of say I've written 2 books of just random history facts. One of them's called Forgotten Histories,
yep.
And the other one's called Slinkies and Snake Bombs, because those 2 things are historical. And so if you just want weird random facts like this is kind of the area where I've pulled this stuff together and put it down. So Slinkies and Snake Bombs, Forgotten Histories, they're available now wherever you buy books by Jem Duducu. But the one, I'll tell you right now, for the first time ever, I've written a few historical novels, but I've actually got my first horror novel coming out later this year, which also has an audiobook coming with it as well. Right. It does obviously have a historical bent to it, of course it does, but it's set in the modern world in a fictional British military asylum, and weird things are going on in this asylum, and this psychiatrist is going into the most dangerous psychological sort of like a ward in Britain to find out what's going on. It's called The Asylum.
Have we talked about horror films and their reflection of society? I don't think we have.
No, we have not. Next time?
Yeah, I think so.
Because the first ever feature film to come to America in 1911 was a horror film. So, if you like, the story of feature films starts in America with horror, not westerns or other things like that. So, let's do that next time.
Right then. If people want to find out more, open that particular Pandora's box of complete craziness. Of course, you have the wonderful condensed histories that people can listen to. You even more of this stuff. Facebook, websites. Where can people find you, Jem?
Look, I'm Jem Duducu, which is a pretty easy thing to find if you search for it on X, on Threads, on Blue Sky, and condensed histories, podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, condensed histories. I take a piece of pop culture like a movie or song and then talk about how it's actually been inspired by real history.
And of course, if you want a sneak preview, something tells me that there might be a slaying by a light composite bow somewhere in the asylum, but that would be giving the bits and pieces away. Yes, indeed. Once again, never fails to disappoint. What a way to kick off whatever year it is, of course. Jem Duducu, as always. My described as my even more caffeinated twin. Thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure.